Hi guys, this is just a really quick video I wanted to do today. It's going to be unscripted, unedited, because I'm currently working on a big video essay for a certain movie that starts with an M and ends with a T, and I just wanted to get out something in between that, and I'm also working on a short film this week. I'm going to try to record it within a week, so I got a lot to do. Anyway, this video I wanted to do to discuss and sort of update my thoughts on the Joker sequel because it came out and it premiered last week at the Venice Film Festival, just as the first one did, and it got some pretty poor reviews. And a lot of people were saying, don't react to the reviews so soon because they hated the first movie. And I just want to explain that this might seem a little bit more bad for the movie than people thought, and that why I'm starting to question, was this movie a big mistake or not? But I also want to update my thoughts on it again because some people are getting me wrong and being like, you have it out for this movie now. And there's a difference between having it out for a movie and wanting it to fail versus seeing the writing on the wall that something might be in trouble. But first, let's get into the reviews. First of all, it is false to say that the critics for the first Joker coming out of the Venice Film Festival, let's be specific about that, hated the film. When it premiered at Venice 5 years ago, the first Joker film, it not only got an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes as a premiere, as opposed to the 59% that this one got, but it also won the Golden Lion, the top prize at the festival. So it won the top prize and it debuted at 89%, and overall critics enjoyed the film. It was after that that critics started to sandbag the film and criticize it for being an irresponsible film, and that people who see Joker are going to pick up guns and start violence and all that kind of stuff. But that's not what they're saying about this one. Now, the score has gone up for Joker 2 to 60%, and I would not be a bit surprised if Warner Brothers pulled strings to get that to happen because they don't want it sitting at a rotten score for the next month or when they're going to be trying to sell tickets for the film. But let's get into the overall, because I've read so many reviews. I've read the reviews from the professional critics, read reviews on Letterboxd, and read reviews from people just trickling out onto Reddit who have allegedly seen the film. And once again, people keep excusing they hated the first film for being irresponsible, but that's not what it seems to be. And I would also like to say first, like, people say don't trust mainstream critics. The reason why I stopped trusting a lot of mainstream critics is I thought that they would rate things too highly too often. But usually when I see them getting scores into the rotten, it makes me question, like, what is going on around this movie? And once again, this does not seem to have to do with any irresponsible themes. In fact, it sounds like Joker 2 might in fact be an attempt to overturn the audience of the first movie and try to appeal to the critics who hated the first movie. But let's get into the rundown. The first common complaint, and the most prominent common complaint that I've heard about this film across the board from all the reviews, not just from the professional critics, but from audience members who have seen the film, is that it's boring. It's a boring slog of a film. And they back up the reasons why. That you essentially only visit two locations throughout the entire film, Arkham Asylum and the courtroom. And the only escape from that is the musical sequences. And that this film is not a psychological thriller like the first movie was. It is a courtroom drama. And as one critic put it, that when it's about the seventh time that you see Arthur being driven from Arkham Asylum to the court, you realize that the movie does not have any surprises in store, and that makes for a very boring watch. Also, that the film being just a courtroom drama referencing the events of the first film means that there's not a lot new that they explore. They're just talking about the events of the first film and reiterating them over and over again from different perspectives. So that is the most prominent complaint about the film, that it is a boring slog because there's not a lot of different locations and it doesn't actually have a lot of depth. There's not a lot new that they explore, which leads into another point that we'll talk about in a minute. The second big complaint of the film is that Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn actually is not in it so much as the marketing would have you believe. Some people even argued that she was sidelined, and I've heard different things about her performance. Some people say that it's very good and that it's the best thing about the film. Other people are negative on it. Overall, it seems to be a positive reception for her performance, but overall they're saying that she actually isn't in it very much. It's mostly about Arthur Fleck again, which should be expected because it's a Joker film, but also she was used so prominently in the marketing, it seemed like a two-hander, and it seems that that is not the case. So that's another criticism. But the third criticism is the most interesting, and this ties into the first stuff about the film being boring and just reiterating the events of the first film. Now, this came from people, once again, people who enjoyed the first film and who criticized the moral panic around the first film, but apparently Joker Folia Do, which we did not get a lot of plot information leading up to this point, apart from some leaks from set photos from the few times they did shoot outside. Apparently, it is a response to the controversy around the first film, most specifically a criticism against people who supposedly watched the first film and idolized the Joker. Like, the movie assumes that the people who love the first film idolized the Joker and want to be like him, just as the media criticized, and it is trying to condemn those people and make it absolutely clear Joker's the bad guy and Arthur Fleck is just a sad clown who didn't get the medical treatment that he needed. First of all, that sounds very boring to just reiterate those events, but that really bothers me because, like, people understood. That just seems very disrespectful to the audience that defended the first film, because it was the audience who understood what they were going for. And Joker, the first Joker, actually is very straightforward with his messaging. It's not very complicated. It's not very subtle. It explicitly says that it's supposed to be about how society just doesn't care for either the mentally ill or the workers that are trying to help them. They just don't care about them, and that showing the consequences of what happens when mental illness goes unchecked. Like, we all got that, but apparently Todd Phillips feels affected by the mainstream media criticism and feels that the audience was a people who did not understand the message of his film and that need to be explained, that the Joker's actions are bad. And so that's what this film is about. And some reviews explicitly say that it feels like the movie has disdain for its audience. It feels like it hates them. And it feels, especially by the end, that audience is going to be a bit maybe insulted by the film. And we'll talk about the ending in a minute. No spoilers. No spoilers in this video. But from what I'm hearing also about, like, the what themes there are in this movie, rather than just reiterating the first film, is that the Joker's followers in this film are supposed to represent the audience who idolizes the Joker, and Harley, or Lee, is supposed to just be the ultimate representation of that, and that is her purpose in the film. And that the point, and this is made very clear, and I already kind of gathered this from some things, and it was what I hoped that they wouldn't go, but that's what it seems to be, is that Lee is only in love or only cares about the Joker. She doesn't care about Arthur Fleck. She only cares if he is like the violent rebel that who kills people and goes against society like she thinks she is. And that's not who he really is. He's really just the sad, demented, mentally ill guy. And so she doesn't actually love him. She only loves the violence. And that actually kind of adds up with earlier editions of Harley, who loved the Joker as the Joker and not if he was ever cured. However, I don't like that, because it's supposed to be a knock at the audience. Like, oh, the audience only cares about the Joker if he's a guy who's just cackling and murdering people. So I don't like what I've gathered from that. I think that it's really talking down to the audience. I think it's really stupid as a film that's professing to be more highbrow to talk down to its audience like that and assume that we don't get it. And once again, it's kind of like Dune Part 2 this year with the Chani stuff, how we supposedly needed Chani to explain to us that Paul's actions were bad. Like, don't talk down to what is supposedly the lowest common denominator that's not going to get something, because most of the audience gets it and we don't need our hand held. But if it insults its audience, then that means that the film is in deep trouble. However, there's another aspect about this that makes me really concerned about the film, and that is the leaked ending. And I will not spoil the leaked ending on here, don't worry about that, but I have read it, and before I read it, I heard that it's of the likes that some people were afraid that once the ending gets out, that it's gonna make a lot of people not want to go see the movie. And I read the ending, and it made me almost say audibly, that's dumb, and it made me feel almost like I didn't even want to see the movie anymore because it sounds like it would just waste my time. And I think I'm just going to say it's the kind of ending that would make the audience feel like they wasted their time with the film. And that's why I soured so much on it. But here's some other things. And I want to talk about my overall thoughts still going into the movie when this is done, is that there is no hype for this movie. From the beginning when set photos released, there has just not been the hype. Now, for me, I was interested in it in just getting a different version of Harley than Margot Robbie's, something that hopefully maybe can influence people to see that she doesn't have to be the person with just a high-pitched voice who screams bad jokes at the audience like Margot Robbie made her into. I was hoping for something better, and maybe because Lady Gaga is still getting positive reviews overall from these critics, then she will have positive impact in that sense. But also, people have kind of been acknowledging that this isn't really Harley, and that might be because they're only familiar with the Margot Robbie version. But I have to admit, what was really my investment in this version was being able to see Harley be an anarchist again, being able to see her actually infatuated with the Joker again, and we might still get that, and I might enjoy that, but also, I'll get to that in a second. I've just seen like no hype for this movie. Like when the set photos released, no one really cared, and no one was really talking about it in the year leading up to the trailer. And I thought at that point, maybe we just have to wait to see a trailer to see it be released. And the trailer released, and finally it got some excitement, and I really liked the first trailer and thought it was really good and started to get me some hopeful. But remember, I was always trepidatious about where it could go because of what I had seen in leaked set photos. And so then months passed and no one was talking about it. And I thought this entire year would be filled with me doing videos about it, but I didn't actually have a lot more to say about it beyond my initial trailer reaction. And nobody else was drumming the conversation and or leaking anything or anything at all. And I thought, well, wait until the month before it's released. Then you'll see the marketing ramp up and a lot more people talk about it. And we're less than a month out from its release, and I'm still not seeing any hype for it or anyone really talk about it. Even these reviews did not get a lot of discussion. And that's why I was questioning whether I should even do this video, because I'm like, does anybody really care about it? And some people have gotten mad at me saying that you've turned on the film and you're against it. And I just want to explain, like, my investment in it was, is this movie going to end up being a blessing in disguise that it does anything positive for these characters going forward? And it might. Once again, it seems like people aren't complaining about Joker and Harley on screen anymore. It seems like we can finally have media where they're technically together, but people don't get really upset by it. I even read a review of a person saying that they now finally don't associate Joker and Harley with the awful Jared Leto and Suicide Squad version, but which is a good thing. But at the same time, I'm like, is it really going to do much positive for these characters if the film doesn't do well? And once again, I was excited to see Harley maybe be a little different than the obnoxious version that we've been getting, and I'll still definitely see Harley in this film and see how I feel about it, but also I'm a little tired of accepting less, because all I've gotten from Harley for years now is alternate universe versions that might be closer to the character I know than the super heroic hates Joker, joins up with the Justice League version that we've been getting lately. And it's like every version of Harley is an alternate universe version. We just had another one from Batman Cape Crusader that's an alternate universe version that didn't even have a reason to dress up like a clown, and it had nothing to do with the character. Now people are saying that this one has nothing to do with the character, and I'm like, well, it has a little bit more to do with her than, the Cape Crusader version, because at least this one has motivation to dress up like a clown. But anyway, I am just overall so exhausted from all of the stuff around Harley, all of the drama around her, accepting less from alternate universe versions, just grasping at straws to get a good version of the character. And if you watch my last video I did on the Joker 2, I defended Lady Gaga's Harley and said she's actually might be a little bit closer to the original character than you think. But at the same time, you saw I was very melancholy about the whole thing, and that's because I am just so tired of all of the stuff around this character, and you know, hoping for better but being disappointed again and again. And you know, that's why I didn't pin everything on this Joker movie. I'm like, wait and see what it is. And right now it's not looking so good. So once again, we won't know for sure until the film comes out, but I'm also questioning, just because of the sheer lack of hype, is it going to make that much money? If that leaked ending, when people see the ending, is that going to make people want to come back? Is that going to bring good word of mouth if the film is as boring as they think? And those are just my honest thoughts on the film, because you have to remember, while a lot of things are successful that don't get a lot of online hype, with superhero content, with comic book related content, that usually gets a lot of hype online, which is why it's concerning. Like, sometimes there's more hype for these superhero projects and the box office ends up bombing. Like, if there's no hype for this film, then that's just not a good sign to me. So, well, the tickets go on sale this week, so we will have to see. But unfortunately, it sounds like this is a movie created by a person who never cared about the comics in the first place. He obviously didn't, but also perhaps did not have much of a story to tell, because that's another thing about the reviews. They make it sound like the musical element is more of a filler than really something that elevates the story. So it sounds like this was a film made just as a cash grab. They didn't have any story that they actually wanted to tell, and that it might fall flat in its face. And I think that the real reason why it might not have a lot of hype around it is not just because of the musical. I think that announcing it as a musical was a huge mistake, and that it's what turned a lot of people off. I also think that the first one was lightning in a bottle, because people seemed really convinced that that first movie was actually an origin story for the Joker. And so that's what they went and saw it. And it was like the polar opposite reaction, because I was against the first movie, because I'm like, this is just a guy taking an IP for his own project. It's not an actual Joker origin. Joker should not have an origin. Everyone else seemed convinced and hyped that it was going to be an origin for the Joker, and when saw it. Now, I think what has really happened is that they have seen that, yeah, this universe is not actually the actual versions of the Joker. It's not going to actually lead to a Batman universe, and that is what has killed interest in this film. And it would not be the first or even the second time that a comic book movie like Aquaman and Captain Marvel, released in the prime of comic books, surprisingly, miraculously, and confusingly made $1 billion, but then the sequel ended up underperforming big time. And once again, it's not going to really help Harley to have another movie she's attached to that is a flop. And once you have to remember, as I've always said, Harley is not the big draw that people think she is these days. So, but it's good. It's good, because I've just kind of needed a break from all this Harley drama. I'm never going to stop talking or caring about this character, because that's why I'm so invested in what do the reviews say and how this is going to do at the box office, and if this affects anything, if at all. But at the same time, I'm so tired of accepting less as a fan, and I've just been so attached to this character for so long and trying to advocate for better. But at the end of the day, the people behind the scenes at DC, they are going to make their decisions, and I can only do what I can to get them to not light this character on fire. But at the end, like, it becomes even more unhealthy for me to fixate on it, which is why I actually feels good that you don't have to worry about it so much. You don't have to be so stressed about the Joker sequel, whether it turns out, whether or not. If it makes a lot of money, if it has good influence on the character, great. If it doesn't, if this is another failure, then it's also fine. Like, I've said what I've said about the character. I've done all I can do. I am not in charge of her, and it's actually just felt better this year to actually be a fan of things like X-Men that I actually enjoy, and that's not just constant drama. So it just actually feels good to not be so invested in it as I was. And the Joker sequel, I think you just have to take it for what it is, that it might have, like, we'll see how it is when it comes out, but I'm very, very concerned right now that it was, at the end of the day, just a cash grab that they did not have a lot of story for. But that's all I got for you guys today. Those are just my personal thoughts on the movie as it stands now. Thank you all the 13 patrons who have now signed up for the channel. 13 of you now. That is amazing. Thank you so much for your support. I will have more great videos out for you guys this week. Thank you for listening to this little mini podcast here, and I will see you guys next time.